Alexander Isak. Oh man, yeah, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. It has been a very poor season. Obviously, he's been injured, so I I have to add that to the analysis. I have to add that to what we have seen from him this season. When he has played, I mean, he's just been non-existent. I know he's got some goals this season, and he had a well-taken goal against West Ham, I want to say, which is really really good. But obviously, his season has just been blighted by injuries, and we've not been able to see like the real Isak. The one that we saw at Newcastle, the one that I would say was a bad man, was an absolute bad man. But I think, listen, at the time of this video, Liverpool still have not announced the new manager. I think it's going to be Iraola. But again, if we're just looking, even whatever manager would come in, I think looking at Isak, looking at the other players that we have looked at for Liverpool, I think is vitally important because these are the players who are going to be a part of the future of Liverpool. And as to what their level of importance to the team, I think it's important to try and just try and see what's up. Do you get what I mean? I think obviously once the new manager does get announced, I probably will do another video, and then we can carefully kind of look at certain players and how they will be implemented and etc. But at the moment, I'm just looking at the players in general and just trying to figure out. And Isak is definitely one of those players, man. Like I said, he was an absolute bad man at Newcastle, but this season, yeah, we've just not been able to see it. And I think one of the main things I always think about when I think about Isak is that obviously stylistically with the way that Liverpool wanted to play under Arne Slot and the way that he was used to playing under Eddie Howe, yes, we can injuries, but just in terms of the style of play, it was, in my opinion, it was just never going to suit him. It just felt like it was never ever going to, kind of suit him. I mean, I think he's only played 1,000 minutes. I want to say, I think just over 1,000 minutes he played for Liverpool this season. I mean, it's definitely not great. It's definitely not great. But look at the way he played for Newcastle. And again, this is what I talk about stylistically, getting the best out of certain players. And we're going to talk about how I feel he could work in a Liverpool system. And I don't think it's going to really matter who the manager is. I think this is just like the best way to potentially get the best, out of him. Look at that. Liverpool this season weren't playing the ball quick enough forward. We weren't creating those kind of spaces for someone like Isak. Now, one thing I have to take into context is Newcastle and Liverpool are two different teams. When people play Liverpool, they do sit in low blocks. When they play Newcastle, maybe against Isak, Newcastle, Gordon, and blah blah blah, maybe at times, but more often than not, teams will sit quite deep against Liverpool because of the quality, that they kind of have. So that is something I have to take into context, and I think we all should take into context that it's never going to be like for like because the team he's going to is a better team. So the opposition he's facing is always going to be different. But there are a few things that can be changed, which I think Liverpool could and probably should be doing. Another area is the wingers. I think we've all spoken about Liverpool need new wingers, not a problem. The type of wingers, I don't really know. I think that's going to come down really to availability, who's on the market, who looks like a signing that could potentially be made. Obviously, he had Anthony Gordon, Jacob Murphy. I think Slot even joked about Jacob Murphy, Harvey Barnes as well. But in his joke, as I always say, behind every joke, there's always the truth, right? He wasn't lying. Jacob Murphy, Anthony Gordon, Harvey Barnes, one of the things that these guys were doing consistently was getting that ball into the box. Liverpool did not do that this season. They weren't trying to get the ball into the box as quickly as possible. Yes, obviously, Isak was there, but Ekatike is someone who likes to drop deep, doesn't really, it doesn't smell the goal, if I'm being 100% honest with you. I think that's something for Ekatike to obviously, once he gets back from his fitness and everything like that, that's definitely something he would need to work on in trying to be able to understand how am I going to get those goals? How am I going to get certain types of goals? These are the goals that the real strikers get, the Harry Kanes, the Haalands, the people of that kind of ilk is these kind of runs. And that's what Isak was doing at Newcastle. But again, he had players to feed him. He had players who would play the ball in early. He had players, and again, style of play and things like that. But there was an understanding of when we get the ball into these kind of areas, it's almost automatic. And you saw that with Jacob Murphy. I think I want to say he got over double digits in terms of assist in the 24-25 season. I'm sure in all competitions he did get that. I could be potentially wrong, but again, there's a reason for that. There's a reason why, because when you've got a striker like Isak, someone who can play in the box, in that penalty area, and is very good in and around that area, keeps the coolness, he keeps the calmness under pressure and things like that. And obviously, we know he's an absolutely amazing finisher. That can always help. And Ekatike, as an example, what we saw a lot of this season, and again, it's not really, I guess, his fault, but it's the type of player that he is. He doesn't smell the danger. He doesn't seem to understand that this is where you get your goals. Great, you can drop deep, you can play. Isak can do the exact same thing. The exact same thing. You can drop deep, you can play, you can go out wide. We've seen him skill players, get past players quite easily in the Premier League. You can do all of that, but you need to be able to smell the danger. That's where you'll get your bread and butter. And that was a problem for Liverpool this season. Obviously, Isak being injured for large parts of it did not help. But that was kind of like an area that I kind of saw, as I mentioned before, about him dropping deep and things like that. Again, you've got the runners this time. Liverpool, we don't really have the runners in behind. You know what I mean? I'll get you. You lose a Darwin Núñez, you lose a Luis Diaz. You kind of lose those runners instantly. Now you're replacing them with Gakpo and Salah, two players who are not really looking to run in behind. They kind of want ball to feet to be able to play their kind of football. It's not going to work. You need runners beyond him. Do you get what I'm trying to say? When you've then got Florian Wirtz, who wants to play next to the striker, but in an attacking midfield or midfield position, who's running beyond? Like, who's making those kind of runs? These are things that can help an Isak. Now, obviously, it's difficult because he hasn't played that much this season. We haven't seen him that much other than like bench appearances here and there. So it is a bit difficult. But in the games that we have seen him in, he just looks so isolated. And if I'm just talking in totality in regards to the way that Liverpool played, yeah, you can see it's just a major problem. As I said before, Newcastle at times would play quite narrow. They got the ball splitting passes from players like Trippier, whether Livramento, Lewis Hall, obviously now, Tonali, Bruno Gibbert. They all knew this was what we needed to do. Now, obviously, being at Newcastle and being at Liverpool, as I mentioned before, it's a completely different ball game. The onus on the team is Isak is the guy, whereas at Liverpool, you weren't the guy. You know, even before you came in, it was always going to be Salah. And there had to be that level of understanding. That might change now potentially with Salah gone, new manager coming in. Maybe that emphasis will change, but or will it? I don't know. Maybe Florian Wirtz is the guy. I have no idea. Liverpool gonna have a lot of players where they will think that they are the main, the main hero of this story, you know, kind of thing. And whether that works in terms of Iraola, for example, him coming in, yes, we understood that Semenyo, but he had other players there who weren't really that far off the level of a Semenyo. You know, at the time, Justin Cliver obviously being one. He's got players like Tavernier, who are obviously not of the level of Semenyo, but again, they're not so far apart in terms of their own abilities, and they're not at that kind of level where they're like they've been there, done that, got the t-shirts to kind of prove it. When you come to Liverpool, it's going to be a lot different for you in terms of certain players have gone and won the Premier League before. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Van Dijk has got a Champions League, and Florian Wirtz has been unbeaten in a Bundesliga season and is a Germany international, you know, kind of thing. And it, of course, then it depends on what other players. If you've got a Bradley Barcola as an example, he's coming here. This guy just gone back to back. You know what I'm saying? So there's going to be players who are going to think that, okay, well, I should be the one. Now, obviously, we all got, every team has to buy into a certain ethic, but we've seen with some teams, it just doesn't work. It really just doesn't work. So it then all kind of depends. But looking at Isak again, it's just, I look at all of these still shots and these screenshots of Isak. I'm seeing him drop deep for the ball. I'm seeing the runners beyond him. I'm seeing him link up play with the midfield. I'm seeing him popping it back. I'm seeing, you know, the way he's even playing against Gabriel and Saliba, you know, two of the best centre backs in the Premier League right now. I'm watching the way that he's playing. I'm watching the things that he's doing, and some of the things that he was doing is, well, I mean, like I said, fitness and everything like that obviously was going to play a massive part. And I do think he's going to be better next season. And I really do hope so, because he's definitely a player that I really like. But Liverpool really do need to sort out stylistically how they want to go about things and the kind of things that they kind of want to do, especially with a player like Isak. We can't have situations, you know, like this, whereby he's just complete and utterly isolated in these kind of positions. And what worked, I guess, relatively well was at times Eddie Howe would actually put a Callum Wilson, you know, up alongside him, a Gordon up alongside him, with Harvey Barnes, Jacob Murphy either side, you know, almost in a 4-4-2, you know, kind of situation at times, depending on the game state. And I felt like in those kind of period of times, it would always work. And the reason why it would work is because, again, there's the level of understanding that Isak is the one who's going to get us the goal. So whether he does drop deep into, these kind of areas, he's still going to be able to link up with the central midfielder who'll be able to pop the ball in. And the thing is, when it's popping the ball in, it's not popping the ball in so we can hold off 10 man. And then, no, it was all about, let's get the ball into here, for example. I've got my right winger, in this kind of position. Maybe I'm just going to potentially pop it off, to him, as an example, and then I'm going to make my way into the box. Once I start making my way into the box, that winger, he knows I need to put that ball into this kind of area here. There isn't a hesitation with Liverpool. It's just like, okay, he might pop that ball off into whoever. This player wants to come and play with this player, and then now the opposition starts to get back a little bit, and then it's all kind of here, and now it's just a bit congested, so we have to go back again. And Isak's already made 4 runs, in this point. He's ran here, he's ran around the back, he's run this side, and he's not getting the ball, and you're just literally sitting there wondering, what the hell are you doing? That was a major problem for Liverpool, and I think it's something I've said across all of these video and play analysis, is that Liverpool move the ball so slow. I don't know what you expect to happen in these moments. Like, I really don't. That's a player plus a manager tactical kind of issue, but they just move the ball so flipping slow. And it's just, I think it's more about they don't trust their own ability, in my personal opinion, because when it keeps happening, I know we like to attribute things to the manager, and I get that, and I can understand that to a certain degree. But I also think players just don't trust in their own ability to be able to do so. They're not that comfortable. And I've said this many times, Liverpool don't have those kind of play. We don't have players who feel the comfortability of a Vitinha, of a Fabian Ruiz, of a Zaire Emery, of a Pedri, of a De Jong, of a Modric, of a Crew. We don't have those kind of players. We never really had those kind of players other than Thiago. And you saw the difference. Hence why I always say we don't have that now. Maybe Curtis Jones would be the only one. When you've got those kind of players in your kind of team who are comfortable in possession and are comfortable at doing what they need to do, I feel like things just work themselves out, on the pitch. Of course, quality players will be able to show you those quality moments more often than not. But the reality is, if Iraola was able to do it with Alex Scott, and I can't remember the other guy in the middle of the park, as like a double pivot with Tyler Adams in there, I'm gonna assume that you should be able to at least try it with Liverpool, at the bare minimum, kind of thing. But again, it all just really depends. Liverpool need to be moving that ball faster. And another thing as well, when we're talking about, midfield and everything like that, you guys have heard me spoke, quite quite a lot about this whole Florian Wirtz. Where does he play? Where does he not play? Obviously, I'm not into this number 10. I really don't want him in number 10 role. And I think one thing when he's in these kind of positions is whether he's given the free reign or not, I don't actually know. But I'm more trying to relate this to, to Alexander Isak. When I'm thinking about it, I'm just sitting there thinking he either goes on his little walkabouts, which means he leaves the striker isolated anyway, even though he should be in this position, or he ends up in like this. And it literally ends up just like that. Everyone just ends up in each other's way, all the time. It's just like, even if Isak was to pull out wide, I'm more expecting him to do that, but he wants to also pull out wide because obviously that's a position that he likes to be in. But he's over there, and you're thinking, okay, I need someone here. You know what I mean? I do need someone there. Isak is someone who does like to pull wide at times. So if he does that, I do need to then look at obviously my right winger, my left winger. Can you almost form as a strike partnership, almost, kind of thing? Can you play in those kind of areas and be comfortable in those areas to be able to, affect the game whilst Isak is over here and he's potentially, got the ball, and whether it's going for a shot, going for a goal or anything like that. I think I just saw at the time of this video a goal that he scored in an international duty. Guess what he was doing? The ball got played out to that left-hand side. He's cut in. What's he done? He's gone and absolutely whacked it, into the kind of back of the net. And again, that's what he's about. That's what, that's what Isak is. He is, I think people had a perception of him about what he was going to potentially be like under a certain type of manager. I feel like he'd be calm. And I feel like under Iraola, someone who was able to get the best of players, like attacking players anyway, Dominic Solanke obviously being one. I think Jurgen Klopp spoke about this in regards to, Dominic Solanke and how Iraola obviously worked really, really well with him. I think, you obviously you need the runners, you need the support. Isak needs the runners, he needs the support, he needs the game to be a bit more closer to him in those attacking areas, you know, kind of thing. It can't just be so isolated where you're like, do something. You know that meme where the thing is poking. No, it can't just be that, because if it's gonna just be that, you might as well just forget about it. You may as well just forget about it, pack it up, and then you're not going to see the best of him. You need to have players in and around him close enough. I'm not saying you need to be on top of him, you know, pause, but you just need to have players in and around him in order for him to be able to go and affect the game in the way that you need him to. At the moment, it's just very isolated with someone like Isak. But again, like I say, new managers coming in, will that potentially change? We'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see. But let me know what you guys think in regards to Isak. Like, how do you see things with the new manager coming in? Obviously, I don't know when I'll post this video out. So whenever that manager does get announced and this video drops, let me know under the new manager. Whoever this new manager, insert manager name. How do you think Isak will do under this manager? Leave your thoughts in the comments section. People, stay blessed, same energy, and I'll catch you guys soon, man. Peace.